Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi, I'm Liz Hyman. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm here with your crew, Bryn Tillman, Mike Simmons, John Way, Chris Bowen, and Renee Bigelow. And today we are going to start talking about value. We're going to talk about value selling or selling value. And because it's, startup week this week, we decided we're going to throw a little bit of startup in there for you guys. So if you're part of the startup world, this will be fun. All right. So let's just start. Selling value, value selling. Is that the same thing or is that something different?
I think it could be a little bit different, but I haven't thought that all the way through.
Me either. It just came to my brain.
So can I start? Are we good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing we have to do is really, and I love we have deconstructing value. There's value to us and there's value to our customer. And it's really important that we understand the difference. Just because we want the customer to know stuff doesn't mean it's valuable to them. So before we even get to value selling, we have to really recognize that when we say to someone, we can help you do this, this, and this, that's a pitch, that's not value. So as salespeople, we've got to get into a value mindset. So the first thing I believe all salespeople need to do if they want to come from this value mindset is they have to detach from what the prospect is worth to them and attach to what they are worth to the prospect, right? It's not about the sale, it's about the solution, right? So when I can come in and bring value, the sale will come when the time is right. It's just the way that happens, right?
Oh, wait, Bryn. There's no secret magic hack to closing deals?
Bringing value. Magic hack, right? It's solving challenges. It's guiding your prospect in the right direction, which, by the way, sometimes the right direction is not your close. It just may be someone else's. And that's the right way to be a value seller. So I think I'm going to answer your question, I think, which is, so that is a value seller. Selling with value, I think, might be a little bit more transactional, a little bit more like understanding the ROI that they can get if they bought our products and services. But I'm not 100% sure I'm happy with that. That's just what pops into my head. I do think that, there's a big difference. We can think we're bringing value when we ask folks all kinds of fabulous questions to uncover their need. And then we say, hey, we can solve it. That's not real. That's important, but that's not the approach that I think creates a trusted advisor. Yes. So
I love that. Can I throw in a Steve Hyman quote here? Because Bryn, my dad.
If anyone could.
So Bryn said, what we want to tell our clients may not be what they are interested in. And my dad used to say, my dad still says, I don't give a shit what you want to tell me. And I say that because, I know it's usually Mike and Daryl that do the cursing for us. But in this particular case, I think it's such a strong statement that it makes you stop and think.
I want to tell you about. I don't care. Right? All right. So now that I've interrupted the flow, what do you guys think about Bryn's definition of value and selling with value?
I tend to always look at value from an outcome perspective. What is going to be what they're going to get at the end or at some definable point in the process, right? And I think as long as you understand, is that valuable to them, either from a company perspective, an individual perspective, an industry perspective, then you should be able to bring that to bear in the right context. Now, whether or not it's above the line or below the line is a completely different set of that process, right? But the first thing is your solution may solve a problem that they know they have. But if it doesn't solve a problem that is big enough to be above the line at that time, you're not getting funded, right?
Oh, so value changes, Chris.
Absolutely.
What's valuable today may not be valuable tomorrow or might not have been valuable yesterday.
Right. And vice versa, right? In the inverse as well. That's how I tend to look at it. And I think if you're bringing value of some flavor into all of your interactions, then when the time is appropriate for that particular prospect or customer, you'll be, if not top of mind, you'll be in that short consideration list. And I think that's what you have to be looking at. You have to be willing to play the long game, because I tell people all the time, like, our focus on a particular quarter, year, what have you, why should they care? They absolutely should not. And if they're more focused on us than we are on them, that's a real problem, probably for their business.
Yeah. What else? What else have you guys got on this?
I'll add in to Chris's outcomes, which I love. I'll add in expectation, because you can have an outcome that solves the problem, but if it's painful to get there, or if it's not the way I expect it to go, that diminishes value greatly. So I think expectation coming in and being able to match to that expectation, and outcome matching on the outside, on the end, is important. So I think those two pair well together.
I think in addition to that, to kind of also add on to what's been said already, is, coming from the background of a product owner and a product builder, you usually think, oh, the way that I increase value is by building bigger, better mousetraps. That's how I get value. And that's not always true. One thing that I know that I've learned is how quickly you can deliver the mousetrap can be very valuable, because some people want it tomorrow as opposed to 3 months from now. To Renee's point, how you deliver the mousetrap is also valuable. How you support the mousetrap after it's delivered is also valuable. So there are a lot of ways that you can add value without getting into the trap of, let's just build more complex, more bigger mousetraps and so on.
Mm.
Mike, you got some? Yeah.
Yeah. Beauty is in the eye of what?
The consumer.
Yeah, it's that beholder, right? Like, everybody has different tastes. Everybody has something that's going on. Someone who has very short time to live is going to put value in some other things that they're doing than someone else who thinks that they're going to live for an eternity. And sometimes we forget that. We forget to ask the questions of our customers to gain a better understanding of the things that they value. And not only the things that they value, but why they value them, and what happens if they don't get them.
So let's back up for a second, because this ties up what everybody's been saying, is what I think your value is may have nothing to do with what's of value to you. So I have had founders, and here's a startup story, say to me things like, it was totally win-win-win. I don't know why they didn't buy it. I thought it should be bringing value to them, but in fact, it was bringing absolutely no value to them because they didn't buy it. Or for founders to be really focused on, one of the big things I hear all the time with founders is, I'm going to save them money, therefore everyone will buy it.
Mm.
But if you go back to what Renee just said, you're going to save me money. How much time, energy, frustration, and money are you going to cost me to get to that cost savings? So as we're trying to understand what brings value, we first have to understand what's going on with that customer. Is saving money important to them? Or is speed important to them? Or is more customers important to them? Or right?
Or service after the sale. What is ultimately going to be important, right? I've seen plenty of customers where quality mattered a whole lot more to them than price. Like they didn't want to have this huge TCO at the end of a 5-year or 10-year life cycle of this product. They wanted to be able to say, hey, we implemented it, it did what we needed it to do, and we didn't have to do a whole lot else after the fact unless it was something that we wanted. It wasn't something being pushed on us by that particular vendor.
This is why discovery is not a stage in a sales process.
So, okay, you got to expand on that. What is discovery? Discovery? Does it fit? Do they have a need? Do they have the budget? I'm done. That's discovery.
No, you just tried to bant me. Come on, I'm not gonna fall into the bant trap.
I'll bant you all day, Betty. Bant being budget.
Oh, I hate band.
Go ahead, but explain what it is for anybody who doesn't know.
Budget, authority, need
and timing.
Timing, right. So here's what happens, I think, when you teach band. I mean, and I used to teach it and I still blocked because I hate it so much. What happens is you go in there saying, and I have experienced this with when I was being trained and we got kicked out of a very large company. So before I ever really used band, I hated it. So anyway, here's the thing is you go in, do they have budget is something I need to know. Who has authority is something I need to know, right? So none of this is from the customer's perspective. None of it. So if you walk in and say, I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about you and your company and seeing if we're a good fit. May I ask you, have you put budget aside for this project? Like, I don't even know what we're talking about yet. Like, what do you mean? And other than yourself, who else will be involved in this decision making of this project? And all of a sudden it's about, I want to take care of my needs and qualify them in for me. And I think that is horrid. Let's turn this around and just really talk about, their challenges, how that's affecting their world. Is this, a huge priority or an issue that's going way up to the C-suite or the board, right? Or is this like, I've got these challenges, but they're, very low priority. Those are the things we need to identify before we ever ask questions that we need answered. If we can identify a problem or a challenge that we can solve and we can put an ROI to it, they'll find budget.
Right. If they can, they'll find it. So I think it's important to say right here, though, it's not that you don't need the answers to those questions at some point during the sales process. It's that if you want to be valuable, if you want to bring value, that's not where it starts. So Mike, take us down this path of what should I be asking then? What kinds of questions should I be asking? What should the conversation look like if I want to bring value?
I mean, my favorite questions start with what, like what problem are we solving? What needs to be solved? Then we get into things like who has it, who's impacted, who cares, a couple of different perspectives. And then from each of those perspectives, why does the problem persist? Why is it important to solve? That persist one gets into root cause analysis. Go and ask your 5 whys, get in there and channel your inner 2-year-old. You work through these basic questions of who, what, why, where, when, how. And that on the other one is that piece, not only why does it persist, but why is it important to solve, gets into the business impact of solving or risk of not solving, right? And by getting that perspective of all three people, the people who have the problem, the people who are impacted by the problem, and the people who care about the problem, you can help reduce blind spots. So I think you use your who, what, why, where, when, and how type questions effectively to both gather information, discovery, validate understanding of that information, confirm understanding of that information, and go deeper. And this is why I hate scripts. And at some point in time, we will talk about scripts and how scripts can cause a lot of damage inside organizations. But in that BANT instance that we were just talking about, when you get banted and you get banted over the head, what you end up feeling is nobody's really listening to the answer that you give. They're listening to the answer they want to hear, and then they just move on to the next question and move on to the next question. And then they go back in and they report back to their team, "Oh, I got a live one because they asked for pricing."
Can I add to a
or a demo, or
Can I add to Mike's? I think the other piece of discovery that is so important is really understanding what the status quo is. Because often what we're selling against isn't a competitor as much as it is whatever the status quo is, right? So like, are you using I'll use John's example of building a product. Are you using a spreadsheet to do this? I'm replacing a spreadsheet, right? Like whatever my solution is, the spreadsheet is the status quo. And in B2B SaaS, probably over 75% of the time, what you're replacing is a spreadsheet somewhere, right? Like you're bringing in some form of change in any B2B sale, right? You're bringing in some form of change because people are going to have to do things differently. Right? Whatever you're selling, they're going to be doing something differently. And that means you have to understand what you'd be changing.
If you don't ask the how question, how are you solving for this thing today? You've created such a blind spot, because if you say, how are you solving for today, and they can't answer it, what makes you think they're going to invest in solving it in the future? There's got to be some other priority that's getting in the way. But if they're doing it through a spreadsheet and you can fix whatever it is that you can fix, now you can start to talk about that difference between current state, status quo, desired state. What does today look like versus tomorrow? And this is where, as professional revenue leaders, we can really do some exciting things. We can lead our customers and help them avoid failure, help them solve their problems, help them gain success. Super, super powerful stuff. Great ad, Renee.
Yeah, that difference between where we're trying to go and where we are today, it's going to give you a lot of information about value.
So I also,
as long as you understand, I think as long as you understand it from their perspective, where they're at and where they want to go, not where they're at and where you want to take them, because those two things may be very different.
Right. Hugely different.
If they don't see it, it may end up being a sell, but just not now, right? Because it may take a lot of nurturing to get them down that path to where they finally start to see that value. At least that's
so.
Sorry, Bren.
I also think, and I love what everyone is saying, but I also think we have to determine what happens if they don't solve this. What happens if they stay in the spreadsheet? It may be okay. Like we may say, oh my gosh, you should not be in a spreadsheet. But if it is not creating discomfort, if it is not creating reporting issues, it may not end up being a priority. So we can say, here's status quo, here's what the future could look like. And they may go, I'm good enough.
I'll tell you a quick story. I had a previous customer, and SAP wanted to sell them time tracking as part of their solution. This company had 115,000 employees globally, and every single employee in the company had to track time on a daily basis because their customer was the US government. And in order to do this, what they had was a mainframe system that they had built themselves, and everybody used it across the company every single day. And it took 2 people to support that. They were able to get all their reporting. All those 2 people really did is they built new front ends, whether that was for a BlackBerry or a web or whatever applications at that point. And so you're never going to replace it until they decide to get rid of that mainframe, because the pain's not there. There is no pain from their perspective on it. And therefore SAP spent tons of time trying to get them, because they were a big SAP customer, but they were never going to switch to that solution until it got to the point where it's no longer viable. Like, we're going to completely get rid of our mainframe, and then at that point it becomes a viable solution at that point. So it's do you understand that pain? Do you understand what it takes for them to support it? And what is that situation that they're going to be in if they continue down the status quo, right? And the situation could be, there's pain, but it's not enough for us to change.
John, were you going to add something? Thanks, Chris. No? I want to take us back for a moment, because we're talking about everything except emotions. And we want to think that our buyers are totally rational, and what is valuable to them is about what solves a problem for them. But some of the questions that we need to be asking are, how do you feel about this? What does this mean for you? How is everybody else going to feel about the way, about the process of changing this? What do you hate about what's going on right now? What are you afraid of? What's the scariest thing about doing this? These are the questions we tend not to ask. And these are the questions Mike has, you can't see what's in the chat, but Mike just told us he has no feelings, and I completely believe that. But this idea that we can only talk, if we just talk about the practical things, if we just talk about the problem, we just talk about the solution, but people are way more than the problem and the solution. And the thing that makes them not buy might be fear. The thing that makes them not buy might be worry. The thing that makes them not buy might be political upheaval in the company. What are the things that they don't, that they don't say unless you start talking to them about and build trust, and are valuable enough to them that they're willing to say to you, yeah, that really just scares me to death, making that change. This is all the things that I keep thinking about could go wrong. And Chris just sent us a note. Chris, you're going to have to explain this.
Oh, it's from a song. Sorry.
He's saying music. I don't listen to enough music. All right. So that's value. Is there anything else before we wrap up this topic of value? Is there enough here for a seller to say, I now know how to sell value? What did we miss in this? Go ahead, Renee.
I'll give one other example. I think John might want to tack onto this as a product builder too. So I'll use B2B SaaS again as an example. So let's say our client comes to us in our discovery process. We figure out there are like 3 things that they need or that are problems for them. And we have 3 solutions sitting over here that are part of our software, right? To Chris's point above, I'm kind of taking parts of it, what everybody has said. To Chris's point about what is above or below the line on what I'm actually willing to fix right now. I have a problem, but it's a problem I can live with, right? 2 of those 3 maybe problems I think I can live with. Of those, one of those problems may be one that I, as someone who's a subject matter expert on my product and understanding how people get value from it eventually, I know that's going to be the thing that you really are going to get value from. However, I think what's really important is what the client recognizes that they will get value from. So that one that may seem the smallest, that one feature that may seem the smallest inside of your software could be the thing they are more than willing to pay for because that's what they value. However, if you're doing some full life cycle selling and marketing, you will be moving them into that feature. Once they get good value from that immediate feature, you will be showing them more value on that feature that you know is going to be life-changing for them down the road, right? But if you keep talking about that one that's going to be life-changing when all they care about is the small one that they were more than happy to pay you for, you can lose the sale because it's not, as Chris put it, above the line and priority right now, even though we know it probably should be. And I know in talking with all of you, we've had those instances before where we know a client really needs to be doing this, but what they're focused on is this, it's often the first step to that other thing. Was that too accurate, or does that kind of break it down?
Sometimes it can just be what's the level of change that organization can absorb at any given point, right? Because big change requires, at least in large organizations, requires huge teams to make that happen. Maybe you have to start someplace where you're saying, hey, we know this isn't 100% what we think is going to be the most valuable thing for you, but it's where you have to start in order for you to get organizational buy-in for this stuff that's further down.
And I think this, to me, is exactly the reason why Mike was talking about how you should not follow scripts. Because if you don't do that, if you're just following a script on a demo, you're just going to go through what usually, me as a product owner, what I think is going to be the most valuable. And you're just tempted to go through that every single time, as opposed to what everybody's saying here is through the conversation with the customer, you figure out like, oh, this other feature that I usually don't demo, but that's the one that they want to see. And then you go for that one. I completely agree with that. The other thing I wanted to say, Liz, when we're talking about value, is there is a lot of value in helping someone navigate their own corporate structure to get your purchase approved. There's a lot of that. One of the things that I've learned is that there are a lot of times there are people who don't know how to navigate their own corporate structure, don't know how to get their own POs created. But if you can help them with that, that adds value to whatever it is that you're doing, because the other person is like, well, you got to do it on your own, and they don't want to put up the fight. They don't want to figure out how to navigate the politics. But if you can guide them through that, I think that's really valuable.
So the bottom line, okay, Mike, quick, and then we're going to wrap this section up.
Really quick, to build on John's point, one of the best questions that you can ask, or a question that works well for me, is when you purchase like something like this in the past, how have you done it?
Yeah.
Or when you purchase something, how have you done it? What's that? It's not, hey, what's your purchase process? So I can put it on my. let's give a crap about, and I have not yet cursed, only Liz has. Let's give a crap about what others are going through.
I think the bottom line here. Go ahead, Bryn.
Yeah, so I just want to say one of the greatest things that you can do in understanding how they bought before is go onto LinkedIn and search past company not present in the role of the person you're talking to. And you can find out who used to be in that seat that has moved on. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm working with your replacement. I'm curious, can you provide some insights? And former employees will sing like a mockingbird, right? So leveraging past, not current employees is a fantastic way to find out how they bought before.
So what I'm hearing from all of you, though, is that if I want to bring value as a sales rep, I need to be a guide rather than a hammer, right? I'm not forcing you. I'm not hammering this nail into this board. I'm guiding you through a process of making a decision. I'm understanding what's going on. I'm understanding the problem. I'm looking at all of the things that are involved in this buying decision. I'm looking at our solution, helping you figure out which parts of it fit or don't fit. And then I'm guiding you through the process of helping the rest of your team buy in. I'm bringing value when you sell, aside from the solution itself, which you hope is valuable, is about the way we support our client through the buying process. So thanks for joining us for this segment of Start Up Your Sales. I think in the next one, we're going to talk about value prop for just a few minutes. So join us in our next segment.
And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.